And it looks like we have Parisian using the standard link sprite, which is nothing wrong with that. I use the standard link sprite myself. It muscle memory. And it looks like our runners are about to start.
Uncle asking a very good question, but we're not going to spend too much time dwelling on that. We've got a very boring piece of heart in Link's house, so...
That's alright. The exciting part's about to come up once they get down into the sewer area. Or the secret passage, pardon.
So again, with this being a standard tournament, the runners are going to spend about 6 minutes going through the escape sequence, rescuing Zelda, before being able to continue on with the rest of their adventure.
The hammer today.
Well, you got your wish. Early weapon, early tempered sword damage, plenty of bomb farming capabilities.
And you cannot understate that tempered sword damage from that hammer. It can handle a lot of bosses without ever having to find a sword. Of course, we'll have to find Master Sword by the end, but the hammer can do a lot of work.
Yeah, you never know when that first sword is coming, so if nothing else, while the hammer typically, in most seeds, will be pretty early, getting it out of the way so you have that good damage option. A lot of boss fights where that tempered sword damage can make it go a lot faster. Nobody's ever going to be unhappy about finding the hammer.
And as you were alluding to earlier with our players having NMG experience, you're seeing a lot of NMG tactics, air pumping, wall pumping, just to get those few extra frames.
Especially in something like Escape, where, you know, if you play NMG, you play through Escape an awful lot. If you play NMG like me, you're resetting an awful lot, so Escape becomes very familiar. So this will be pretty familiar for both our players. Maybe not the hammer part, but movements, air pumping, wall pumping, like you said.
And we see Parisian trying to farm those guards a little bit, still looking for those bombs.
Yeah, there's certain guards who you feel like it's a good idea to go out of your way to kill, looking for bombs during the escape. Everybody has their own style. Looks like Parisian's really just kind of killing anything that gets within hammer range. He is on 1 heart here, and the hammer fight of the ball and chain guard can be a little tricky with the hammer, so wouldn't be surprised to see him grab the pots coming up just for a little insurance.
Oh, I'm sure he'll grab a heart or two from the pots just to make sure. This is not the place you want to take an early death. And we see him grabbing 2 hearts underneath the pots, and the guard is down.
Yeah, very easy to have your hammer swing deflected by that guard, so only 1 heart is risking it a lot. Not surprised to see him pick up. Just take a couple seconds for the safety. No items of note besides that hammer so far. Sometimes this mode seems to throw a lot of value in the escape sometimes. So far, not finding anything. Nor have we found a bomb yet, despite both players killing pretty much every enemy that's come in their path.
Yeah, we'll see what happens when they get down to the rats. Of course, one thing I always love to see as a runner is a 3 bomb drop from a chest, but they still have 1 more chest, and they already have a small key, so we're not sure what's going to be in that chest before they get to that bombable wall.
Yep, they found the small key. They've also found the map, so we know everything else in the escape is going to have an item. A little surprised to see Parisian walk around all 3 of the guards there, but there are still plenty of snakes and rats to be killed. Maybe he's decided that it doesn't seem like bombs are on the drop table for these guards.
And once again, for the benefit of maybe some of our newer viewers, this light cone that you get in the escape, our runners do not have the lantern, but since this is a standard mode randomizer, they will get this free light cone in the escape sequence just to be able to complete it and get out to the sanctuary.
See Shady farming some of the snakes and does get his 1 bomb drop, so Parisian should also be getting it shortly. I think they've killed pretty much the same number of enemies. Well, he's going to go a little further, but if he kills a couple more snakes, he should pick this up as well.
Taking a few hits, though.
You're having a hard time landing some of those hammer shots. That's maybe where the NMG muscle memory is working against him, because this is not something you'd be doing with the hammer in NMG. Shady, a little bit more rando experience, maybe a little more comfortable using the hammer in situations like this.
We'll see if Parisian gets a bomb from these rats. And Shady's going to be opening up the back of Escape with his one bomb. And a nice 4 bomb drop for Parisian player.
Getting the 4 bomb very big right there.
Unfortunately, not a lot of value in the back of Escape, though.
Not value, but implicit time save there, not having to come back later. So always, even when it's empty, good feeling that you got the bombs. Plus, with Parisian picking up the 4 drop, he's got enough bombs to do all of Kakariko as well.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Shady might have to go purchase bombs to be able to clear out Kakariko.
Still has a couple places he could pick up bombs right there, for example.
That works
he
too.
picks up his Kakariko bombs, he won't have any problem now getting through the village in one shot. I was going to say there's also the bush crab coming up to the north and the tree pull, which most players will do, especially if they have no bombs after the escape sequence. Looks like Shady's going to head that way anyway. And Parisian will follow him. Some players will go straight to the Lost Woods if they have enough bombs to complete Kakariko.
And Shady's getting a nice 4 bomb drop and a tree pull of full magic, which is also nice.
Very nice to have that early. You never know. Plus, at some point in the middle of the seed, magic could become something you need to fill up on very quickly. As far as tree pulls go, not the worst, certainly.
And we just see a piece of heart in the lumberjack cave, so not knowing yet whether we'll have to do Aga, but we definitely won't have to do it for that item.
This version seems to enjoy forcing its runners to kill Aghanim. We won't be doing it for that item, but maybe we'll be doing it for Dark World access.
We have Shady picking up the 50 rupee drop. Of course, rupee's always nice to have. You'll see runners try to farm up that first 500 to 600 to get Zora and Pod money as early as possible.
Yeah, certainly any 50 rupees, 100 rupees, even some big 20s, you'll see runners pick those up early just to get them closer to that mark. Put them within 300, say. So if they pick up 300 rupees, later on, they'll be at 500.
And we're about to see what Shady finds in Kakariko. He's the first to enter, and he should be going to Blind's Hut first.
Parisian needs to be very careful. Oh, no. Parisian
That's
didn't
an
quite get the
unfortunate
bush
death.
pickup fast enough. Took 2 pokes from that guard. He's going to take a death. He'll probably approach Kakariko from the south. Yeah, it looks like he's going to start at Link's house now. Just Parisian seemed to be perennially on 1 heart there for that entire sequence, and it finally caught up to him. We got Shady picking up a bottle. That'll be useful.
And the blue mail, which will make it nicer once they actually get to the Dark World. And just a bomb capacity upgrade in the back, so nothing there.
Yeah, nothing exceptionally useful yet. We've been through all of the escape, and we've been through one of the major points of Kakariko, and while we did get the bottle, which is nice, helps us route all of Kakariko in 1 shot here, no actual progression yet, which honestly is a little surprising. Most of these V29 seeds will be very fast and loose with the progression early. Maybe we're about to see it here.
Just a big 20 at the race game, and a big heart in the front of the well, and just a single green rupee in the library. Oh, and there's the powder in the back of the well.
Powder's very interesting there. Oh, and fire rod in the front, silver arrows, and the bloomerang. So there's some items for us.
Fire rod is a great weapon to pick up early, and silvers will be nice whenever they can get their hands on the bow.
Parisian picked up the lamp there in the back of the bar, while the bottle merchant scammed 100 rupees from Shady for very little. That powder's an interesting pickup with the early hammer. Means These runners will have access right next to Kakariko to go do the magic bat.
And our runner's high-fiving there in the chicken hut, just picking up a piece of heart.
One coming from the north, one coming from the south, meeting in the middle.
Yeah, it's very rare you get this early of an opportunity to check the magic bat.
It feels like it's a mandatory check. Being here in Kakariko already, having access to it this early, I'd be surprised if either of our runners passes it up. Especially Shady, who's going to be right here at the south end. Parisian will have to double back a little bit since he'll be at the top of Kakariko, but I would imagine both of them will still do it here.
I would think so. And it's also interesting that Kakariko had both fire sources, so that will not be a problem this seed. Don't have to worry about dark rooms or any fire lock locations.
Interestingly, I know that Parisian was rooting for no lamp in this seed because he has amazingly completed some blindfolded runs of this game, vanilla. So I don't think dark rooms were going to be much of a problem for him. But with both fire sources out of the way, and you see Magic Bat giving absolutely nothing, but with both fire sources out of the way, we won't be having to deal with any dark rooms.
Well, the powder didn't lead to any item progression, but it is still a nice safety to have, especially if we don't run into very many hearts, but we'll see what they get.
Probably the best safety to have. I think everyone who runs this game would be in agreement.
Something that I didn't know until I started running Randomizer, of course, is that the powder can be used to turn anti-fairies into fairies, which makes it an amazing safety in GT, and especially in Turtle Rock, where there's so many anti-fairies.
Yeah, the later you go in this game, the dungeons are more and more filled with anti-fairies. So when you have powder, things get easier and easier as far as your survivability goes. So Shady and Parisian, despite their differences, Parisian actually did not check Magic Bat, but they're both exiting Kakariko at the same time, both saving quitting the Lynx house and heading to the South Shore, pretty much in lockstep with each other.
Parisian might be thinking to come back later as a part of a peg cave check or something on that, but yeah, they're both heading to the dam at the same time now. And let's see what's in the front of the dam, and it is the Moon Pearl. That's a very nice thing to find.
Always nice when that's not going to be the item early that's trolling you, so good to get that out of the way.
Of course, with Moon Pearl and with Hammer, we are a glove upgrade away from Dark World access.
The very lucrative mini Moldorm cave coming up, as we see there's nothing worth picking up that piece of heart outside the dam. We are very likely going to see both runners make their way over to Ice Rod Cave, though I will be interested to see if either of them decides to skip the Ice Rod Cave check. Ice Rod Cave has developed a bit of a reputation in this version as being very valuable early. I think fewer runners would skip it now than would have in previous versions, so we'll see what both these guys decide to do.
We saw Shady trying to use the hammer to take out the Moldorms and having a hard time with that hitbox, switching over to the Fire Rod, and Parisian player just handily taking care of them with that Fire Rod and picking up a Master Sword, big hearts, small heart container, and 5 rupees. That was a pretty high paradox. Mini Moldorm Cave.
Master Sword, very nice to find, although it does leave the door open for Aghanim here as our Dark World access.
Yeah, I think our runners will be very much looking for that glove upgrade.
Now, neither runner opting to skip the Ice Rod Cave check. Probably a wise move.
Yeah, when you're one item away from Dark World access and you have everything you need to complete Aga, I would definitely be checking this. Just a big 20. And Parisian player is walking out of the Ice Rod Cave.
He may be fake flippering, even without the money for Zora. Or
And we
maybe
get a
he's-
map check, and we have Tower of the Hera as a pendant, and we have both Eastern and Desert as crystals.
2 Lightwork crystals, and Parisian does look like he's going to head back, maybe do some fake flipper checks. I know there are players who will fake flipper here and check everything. There are players who will only fake flipper to hobo and then save and quit. We'll see what Parisian decides if he's going to do all the checks or not. He does not have the money for Zora, and it's unlikely that he'll get the money for Zora from his fake flipper checks, but this is not much slower than it would take to have flippers later and do these checks. So I'm generally a fan of doing these fake flipper checks, even when Zora is not in the equation.
Yeah, of course, with no glove and no flipper, Zora is completely out of the logic right now, but you can fake flipper and check 2 items in Waterfall Cave. And we're getting a Sahasrara check. And the 3 items in the back are just another big hearts, another big 20, and 50 rupees. So a little bit of change.
And that fake flipper pays off enormously potentially for Parisian, the hobo having the bow today.
Very nice find for Parisian player. He can actually full clear Eastern Palace now when he travels that direction, which he is right now.
Yeah, this is going to work out amazingly for him, regardless of what's in Eastern, because Shady's on his way to Eastern without the bow, and we know he won't be finding it in there.
And of course, depending on where we find flippers or when Shady decides to fake flipper to hobo, possibly that could be a big difference.
This is one of the reasons that early sequence break can pay off. We don't know exactly how much it will pay off. The biggest payoff, I guess, if you fake flipper to hobo there and he has your glove upgrade, that's wonderful. We could still see something like that where Armos Knights are holding a glove upgrade and Parisian has sequence broke his way to Dark World access potentially.
That would
But that's
be the
getting
big...
a little bit ahead of ourselves there.
Yeah, but that would definitely be the biggest payoff for Parisian player, but we'll see how it plays out for him here. And we have Shady, not really getting anything in the first chest, about to get to the second chest. Just a big 20.
So far this seed has been pretty heavy on the firepower, with our runners having a decent number of hearts, blue mail, good safety in the powder, master sword, fire rod, hammer, silver arrows. Well, at least for Parisian silver arrows. Won't be hard. And there's tempered sword for Shady. Parisian will be picking that up shortly. So we've got a lot of firepower on both of these players so far.
Remember how we were talking about hammer being great for early tempered sword damage? Yeah, we have the actual tempered sword now.
Just like I said, nobody will turn down hammer early. We're not going to turn down 18-minute tempered sword either.
There should be one more item, I believe, left here in Eastern Palace.
Yes, I believe they've picked up 2, big 20 and the tempered, 1 more to go.
You see Shady doing the using the iframes to press the switch and getting the big key. We'll see if there's anything in the big key chest, pardon, or if Armos Knights will be holding the last item. This could potentially be big for Parisian player. Armos Knights has the last item in Eastern Palace.
Yeah, this is the situation we were talking about. It could be nothing, but if this is a potential progression item or something that lets him avoid Aghanim, this could be really big. And Shady's actually looks like he's headed that way. So,
Oh man, if this is Dark World access, this will be huge. Having a little bit of trouble pressing the switch, but getting his big key.
So from Shady's perspective, this makes a lot of sense. There's only one other location that's actually in logic to him right now. That's Agina's cave, and he's decided that even though that could be something that gets him to Dark World, he's gonna make the Aga play.
And that's a difficult call to make too, because checking Agina's cave with no flute and no boots does eat up a bit of time. So he's just making the play to get to the Dark World now.
Yeah, I think this is very reasonable. If you're looking for the Moon Pearl as your last item, you probably save Aghanim for last possible spot, but this makes a lot of sense. It's not like the Aghanim portal is completely useless, even if you guess wrong here. I think this is a very reasonable play in Shady's position.
Unfortunately, not having the bow can't do that pyramid 2-pod play and full clear that potentially, but we'll see how this plays out for Parisian player as he's entering the Armos Knights fight right now with silver arrows. This will be an easy fight. And just the red meringue from Armos Knights, so we're probably going to be seeing Parisian player making his way to Aga Tower right now as well.
It's a nice bullet dodged by Shady, and he doesn't even know it yet, but while he is probably slightly behind from the double dip he'll be doing in Eastern, he is not way behind, because I think Parisian's going to follow him into Aga Tower here. And it looks like I'm a liar. Parisian has save and quit to Sanctuary. He may be doing a Houlihan strat so that he can go check out Zora.
I believe you're correct. He's making sure he doesn't go too far down on the screen to keep the, we call it the camera, but the screen in the right position so he can just fall down 3 times here. Oh, never mind. He's going to do the cave setup. I'm a liar.
Yeah, he may not be aware of the, I think, slightly faster setup that he walked right past. Oh, I'm sorry. No, he doesn't have mitts, so he can't do that. This is the only Houlihan he can set up, so he knows what he's doing. Don't listen to me. So this is actually a divergence here of strategy. Parisian is going to go the extra mile to try to avoid having to do Aghanim, while Shady Force kind of bit the bullet early. I'm sure he knows how to fake flipper, and he may have thought, hey, maybe we can fake flipper and avoid Aga, but he's going straight there. And this long walk back to Parisian doing the smart thing actually might be setting up. No, actually, he's gonna check out Agina too. So Parisian's committed to actually doing this last possible spot, while Shady committed early. We're gonna see who that pays off for, and it's gonna pay off big for one of them.
Oh, it definitely will. We're seeing quite a few minutes in the verges here. And not having those 8 rupees, he possibly may just have to sit and farm for a minute.
The other thing is, if he is going to commit to doing the fake flipper all the way to Zora, he's going to have to walk all the way back to that fake flipper spot as well. And those are 2 long walks back to back, while Shady's already done with Aghanim.
And we're about to see what the pyramid item is.
Shady almost forgetting the check. Oh, and it's
man.
the boots.
Well, Parisian player gets the rest of his Zora money, but the boots for Shady.
Yeah, this is looking like it's now swung back a little bit in Shady's favor, even with that early bow for Parisian. Shady now can move about the world very quickly, and even if Parisian manages to find a way to avoid doing Aghanim, he's not going to find those boots right away.
And get your hype ready. We're about to check Hype Cave. Not a good start for Hype Cave. Never mind, Hype Cave is hype. There's the mirror.
Doesn't matter what else is in Hype Cave. If you find the mirror there, it's pretty hype.
That's such a great item. We don't know if Swamp is a pendant or a crystal yet, but the mirror just makes routing so much easier.
Just a little bit more pain on Parisian's screen. I think he's walking all the way back up to do that bat check.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that he's going to spend his time doing this. We know it's nothing, but he is checking every possible location. And the hook shot from the Stump Kid. Shady is finding everything.
Jump-started his seed with these checks. The early, I won't even say early Aghanim play, but the acceptance that the seed was telling him to do Aghanim versus the non-acceptance on Parisian's side is really starting to tilt the scales heavily.
So Shady has one more check here to do in the digging game. Since he does not have the Titan's Mist, he will not be able to go into Village of Outcasts, but he's already found a lot of value in South Dark World.
Yeah, this is already fantastic for him. Just having that mirror, even still with no glove upgrade, he's got a way to get... I guess actually he can't get to Village of Outcasts just yet, still with no lift upgrade or flippers. But there are still some things now he can go back to the Light World and do some bonk rock checks. And whatever he has to check, it's going to be faster than the 3 things Parisian's done right in a row. He had to walk all the way. You see Shady digging up some new clothes there. Parisian had to walk all the way to Agina. He had to walk all the way to Batcave, and now he's had to walk all the way down to Fake Flipper again so that he can swim and maybe still end up having to do Aghanim after all of this.
We see Shady going up here. He does have the hammer and he does have the hook shot, so he can get across the Village of Outcasts.
Oh, right. You can hammer right through here. All right, so that's 2 mistakes in 27 minutes already for me. Little surprised he's not gonna... Well, I guess without the bow, yeah, you're not gonna dive into pod, so... He's gonna be able to go and route all this North Dark World stuff in one shot, which is actually frustrating sometimes. With the boots, he can get in here. He can check King's Tomb. He can check Graveyard Ledge. He can check the other bonk rocks on his way out, so... These items that Shady's found really gonna pay off in this route.
We didn't see anything of value in the Waterfall Cave on Parisian player's side. He's gonna go check what Zora has on him.
Yeah, at this point, the only thing that saves him, and like we said, with that boot location, it might not even help him to find a glove upgrade here, honestly.
Oh no, the more minutes pass by with Shady having the boots and Parisian player not having the boots, it's just a little bit widening the gap potentially. And we get Butter Sword from King Zora. Wow.
Butter Sword is nice with Tempered already at hand and all these other powerful items that these runners have already. Probably not much of a nice find there. Nice that it was nothing, but Parisian's gonna have to go do Aghanim, and he's already several minutes behind where Shady's at.
Yeah, but when Parisian does get to that Ganon fight with Silvers and with Butter, that's gonna be an easy one.
Now, Parisian could be helped out by having that bow. He may opt to go straight to pod after picking up his boots, which could be a chance to make up a little bit of time if something's in there that Shady's going to put off doing for quite some time if the flippers don't show themselves.
Yeah, pod may end up being a forced double dip if flippers, for example, are in pod themselves.
The item trail's gone a little cold here for Shady. He's actually stopped finding progression items, believe it or not. And we get our first map check. Pod being the Red Pendant, Swamp Green, and 5 and 6 Skullwoods and Thieves.
I appreciate Shady leaving the map up for us for a second.
I tried to talk as fast as I could, but he gave us plenty of time there. That 5-6 crystal combo is very nice considering we can full clear both of those dungeons right now.
Just a full heart container on the Bumper Cave ledge. And Shady's done a great job of routing this Dark World. He's about to go up into Skull Woods, and as you mentioned, he can full clear it and then head down the Village of Outcasts, and he can do everything there as well, aside from the Smith area.
Yeah, even with the forced Aghanim play, this is honestly, you know, this is a Dark World you would dream of, getting the mirror and the hookshot and the boots in quick succession there. Plenty of firepower where you're not going to be afraid of going in these dungeons. You know, sometimes you can technically, in theory, clear Skullwoods, but you've got 5 hearts and green mail and fighter sword. That's not the situation we find our runners in here. There's not going to really be much of a problem doing any of these early dungeons.
And the single arrow is the first item out of Skull Woods.
Nice little bomb jump there to get to the big chest by Shady. Only a small key for his troubles.
And Shady's going to be heading to the back of Skull Woods now, while Parisian player is going to be heading into his Aga 1 fight.
Yeah, at this point, Parisian fighting Aghanim a good 8 or 9 minutes after Shady completed his Aghanim fight.
Shady's making the play on Mothula having the item, not checking that back room right now. Which, of course, he'll have to run back through the dungeon to get to Village of Outcasts anyway, so if the item is there, it'll work out.
Yeah, not a terrible gamble. Already having found one item, I think, and having the mirror. You can kill Mothula if he doesn't have the item. You can check the chest underneath Mothula, mirror out, and if you still don't have it, he's got to walk back there anyway, like you said. You see Shady just burning down those Gibdos. He knows he's got Tempered Sword. He does not really need much magic to fight Mothula. You're not going to really rely on Fire Rod to do damage in this situation.
Unfortunately, hitting the mini Moldorm with the Fire Rod there.
That Moldorm loves to get in the way of that Fire Rod shot.
Alright, we have boots, we have Tempered Sword. This should be as close to NMG as possible. Of course, if Mothula gets hit into the spikes, he does not take damage, but that is a very quick and easy fight for Shady. And Parisian player is picking up his boots.
And not the friendliest pattern from Moth early there, but Shady handled it very nicely. Cleaned it up pretty quick. You can really get some uncooperative Mothulas. That wasn't quite as bad as it can get, but a little scary. He stayed close to those spikes for a couple rounds there. We do not have Parisian going towards pod, though. I missed if he did a map check. If he did and saw it was red pendant, that might be dissuading him a little bit, but he's going to mostly follow the same route that Shady did. He could also be dipping into Hype Cave and then going into pod. That's also an option.
And that would actually work out with him a lot, because if he wants to dive pod for items, having the mirror makes routing that dungeon significantly easier.
Definitely. He will, in that case, have to work his way back over to Stumpy at some point to pick up his hook shot, but very viable route if Parisian decides to go that way.
And unfortunately, the second item in Skull Woods was just a piece of heart, so no progression here, but it is a crystal.
Now, our wonderful tracker, by the way, I don't know if I shouted at our tracker yet, GFE12 in chat pointing out that, yes, Parisian did do a map check, so that's probably what's keeping him away from pod. And we did say that might be one way for him to get kind of back into this, but picking up the hookshot is also going to happen by not going to pod, so we'll see which one ends up being a good play or not. Shady's going to head towards Thieves, having completely finished the North Dark World and finished off Skull Woods. And this will also be very quick checks here with the boots, and I'm sure he'll be dipping in and clearing out Thieves.
And just a bomb capacity upgrade in the Sea House.
How long can we go realistically before we get a lift upgrade here?
Oh, I've seen seeds north of an hour without a lift upgrade, so we will see. Of course, it's actually one of the best go mode items to have. The Titan Smith, because it limits so much in the game.
Parisian is 2 rupees short of the dig game. We know there's nothing. He has no way to farm rupees easily on that screen, and he's gonna have to. It looks like he's going and searching for some rupees from these guards.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. You spend a little bit of time here, and it's just a red mail, but you have to ease your mind on that one and make that check.
I'm sure he's not feeling great having put off Aghanim for that long and having it been a requirement, but yeah, sometimes can be tough to realize. Ironically, him putting off Aghanim involved him spending 500 rupees at Zora, and now he doesn't have enough rupees to make an efficient check here. And there's our first lift upgrade. Shady Force finding it here in Thieves.
Well, that is a very nice thing to find. Now, of course, we're still looking for Titans to really up some of the more availability and make East Death Mountain available, but he can go up to regular Light World Death Mountain now.
Yeah, very lucrative. He could knock off all of East Death Mountain, Light World Death Mountain in one shot. And without those Titans mitts, there's actually not too much off of Death Mountain that he's got left. Parisian having a little bit of trouble with that spin speed coming off the pyramid there. And he too is opting to still not go into pod. Honestly, that's a little surprising to me. I guess the he also, like Shady, trying to lift up that skull that he cannot lift up yet.
It's muscle memory. We are getting a catfish check, though, from Parisian player.
Well, he's about to get more bad news in terms of not being able to lift things if he tries to go to catfish here.
I always forget that one as well.
It's usually not some situation you find yourself in too often, but that is a hard requirement. Unlike Zora, which you can get around with fake flippers, you would take a lot more craftiness if you wanted to get over to catfish. Parisian not realizing he can bonk through those rocks. Looks like he's actually going to go all the way around this side to get in to King's Tomb. Shady making pretty quick work here in Thieves. Very clean rooms, not taking any hits. With Red Mail and Tempered Sword, like we said, most of these dungeons are going to be pretty much a breeze. Even though we don't have the largest heart count in the world just yet. We'll be seeing both these runners make pretty quick work of any dungeons they go into.
Yeah, we have Shady going down to the Maiden now. I believe there's still 2 items left, if I counted correct.
I think that's correct.
All right, so we're about to see what's in the big chest and then what is on blind.
Just 50 bucks in the big chest. 1 item to go. Oh, Shady getting the exact right frame to hit that jelly there on the conveyor, not getting shocked somehow.
And of course, this blind fight shouldn't be too much of an issue for Shady with the red mail. Any weapon you use against blind does the same amount of damage, but taking less damage versus those heads is always a good thing.
Yeah, the key to blind is keeping him on that script. You do that by hitting him on the first frame of vulnerability every time. Shady missing the last hit in that phase there, so he'll get a little off script here, but shouldn't be too tough with this red mail, like you said. These sometimes dangerous heads of blind not doing anywhere near as much damage as they normally do, and he's rewarded with just a big 20 for his troubles. But the second Fat Fairy Crystal, which means Fat Fairy is now open to him as well.
It's interesting, we have an early Pyramid Fairy available. That glove upgrade, of course, being the main item out of Thieves Town. Nothing really else of value unless Pyramid Fairy comes true. And where is Shady heading now?
Shady may be coming up here to check the cape ledge. I can't remember if he looked at it earlier, but then he's going to mirror and head up the mountain.
Well, that really works out for him. Of course, he has 2 items on the left side of Death Mountain, and 7, I believe, in Paradox Cave, and 8 if you count Spiral Cave. There's upwards of 10 items on Light World Death Mountain, and it very well could be progression.
That was really heads-up routing by Shady as well, because there's a lot of muscle memory when you want to say, okay, it's time to go up Death Mountain and you're in the Dark World. Most people would not think about it and save and quit, and then realize they have to go to Sanctuary and run up the mountain anyway. So that was really heads-up, saving a couple seconds by realizing the fastest way up the mountain from where he was just running right there. He's going to get a shovel from the old man. I don't think he's going to be too eager to go cash that in, but it's an interesting item to receive there.
Chad also pointing out that Hera is available with its 2 items. It is a pendant. We'll see if he dives.
It can sometimes feel mandatory while you're up here to check out Hera, even when Hera is a pendant. Just because if you decide you have to come back later, it's a little bit out of the way from where you'll be any other time in the seed.
I guess we'll find out now if he goes in. And he is going to go ahead and check out Hera.
The other option here is to just check the first 2 items and potentially leave. I know some runners who are trying to hedge their bets may do something like that. Or if they see that the basement is required, maybe they save it for a return trip after the rest of Death Mountain. All kind of viable options. Of course, with that big key, we know it's not basement required, and it looks like Shady's going to stick around and head up.
Of course, with the equipment he has, this Moldorm fight's fairly easy. 3 hits with the Tempered, so he may just clear it all the way through.
Yeah, I think once you've decided to come up the tower even a little bit, you're committing to pretty much pulling all the items out of here and killing the boss probably.
We see Parisian player in his Mothula fight.
Getting an even worse moth pattern than Shady got, but deals with it well. Gets out of there. Thankfully, in this version of the game, Butter Sword does do damage to Moth.
Yes, I believe that's one of those things that they fixed for the randomizer, correct?
Yes, it would be awfully inconvenient if you could pick up the Butter Sword and Randomizer and then suddenly find yourself unable to do any damage to Moth. Shady headed into Moldorm. Let's see if he can get through this fight without any trolling incidents. Perfectly done. Spin and a slash with the Tempered Sword, no problem. Just a couple arrows, though.
So we'll see what the basement has, because so far Hera has not paid out.
There are runners who would gamble that the basement's going to be nothing. I think Shady will play it safe here. I think his routing has worked out well enough. Okay, I'm apparently a liar. He's going to leave. He's also got the option with that mirror. If he finds nothing of use or value in East Death Mountain, he could come back over here and check out that last item. That would not be crazy. He's leaving himself as many options as possible. Probably actually the smartest move, honestly, rather than commit. And ooh, you find the flute sitting there on the island. Can't quite get to it yet.
Oh man, that one, that flute's just taunting them now. They don't have the Titan's mitts to get there.
Plenty of items to go on East Death Mountain, though, so maybe it just comes into play in just a minute or two.
Parisian player going through his Village of Outcasts checks now, and Shady just finding arrow capacity upgrade in the Spiral Cave.
Shady very heads up, realizing he has the mirror. He can enter Paradox Cave this way with the mirror, save a little bit of time.
Of course, for any of our newer viewers, all you have to do to actually perform that trick is spam the mirror as you're pushing the block. It's really that simple.
Yes, Link to the Past is notorious for not liking two things happening at the same time, so pushing a block and using the mirror is one of those things that it does not really know how to handle.
Just please don't do that in a dungeon, as you will return to the front.
Now there's the Ice Rod and the Cape for Shady. We know Cape, not necessarily required for anything, and the Mushroom and the Titan's Mitt. So Paradox Cape, a
man.
place to be.
That Titan's Mitts is very nice, considering we know that flute is there on the floating island, and now he can actually open the Turtle Rock portal. Of course, we don't have a medallion, so he won't be doing that right now. But that Titan's Mitts opens up a lot. He can check Mire area as soon as he activates the flute.
Yeah, this has just been really, this Dark World has been laid out about as dreamlike as possible so far. The efficiency just in routing the items as they come up, not having to do anything too creative with your routing. It's all just kind of laid out in front of you. Really, really working out. For both these runners, it's just that Parisian's got a little bit of a deficit to overcome, but he's gonna, honestly, I see him taking the exact same route that Shady's taken and doing it pretty much just as quickly.
Yeah, after that early divergence, it's kind of seems it's been fairly linear since there. We'll see what's in Hookshot Cave now. Got an arrow capacity upgrade. Another bottle. Just 50 rupees. And a big 20. So nothing in Hookshot Cave itself, but he will be heading to the back to mirror and get his flute. And also we have a vanilla Turtle Rock requiring the Quake to complete that dungeon to open it up.
So depending on the medallion required for Mire, we are quickly approaching a go mode here. We know that by logic we're going to require those flippers, though it remains to be seen if we'll actually need the flippers. They lead to the bow, which Parisian Player has. We're going to need the Quake Medallion at least, and we're going to need the Cane of Samaria, but that is potentially all of the items we're going to need to pick up today.
Yes, and bow requiring flippers may be what takes Shady some time.
Especially depending where those flippers show up. That's really the only thing hanging over Shady's head, and he doesn't realize it yet. We realize it. It could be very simple if he finds flippers in a very easy area. If they're in, for example, the Mire Shed, which is probably where he's going to head after activating his flute, then he'll be in a good spot. He did leave Death Mountain after finding all those items. He left Death Mountain without checking the second item in Hera, which I can't say it's the wrong move. He found certainly a lot of progression over on Death Mountain.
Yeah, we have Parisian Player in his blind fight now, and we have Shady about to activate his flute and probably going to be heading to Mire after that.
Yeah, Parisian keeping blind perfectly on script. Very nice fight. We're getting a virtual high five from our runners in 2 different dimensions here.
Now we still do have Pirpin Fairy unchecked.
Really tough to say when Shady will get around to that, considering the options that are open to him after that Death Mountain trip. But it is enticing when the first 2 dungeons you complete open up Pyramid Fairy. It's something that's on your mind even as you're putting it off, for sure.
Alright, we're about to find out what Misery Mire requires this seed, and it is Bombos.
Alright, so they will need 2 medallions today.
And there's the flippers in the Mire Shed.
Okay, so that's a useful item for Shady. He doesn't realize it yet. It would be very likely that Shady will be comboing a trip to Ice Palace at some point with a check of those flipper spots, or at the very least Hobo. So unless he gets really too aggressive with his routing, he should be finding that bow at some point.
Yeah, I'd imagine, as you said, he would check it when he's in the Ice Palace vicinity, and he's going to go ahead and pick up this full heart container from the checkerboard cave. And Parisian player is headed to Death Mountain. Of course, Shady should probably just gonna do desert while he's here. He has everything to do it, and it is a crystal.
Yeah, no reason to not. You're standing right here. You can get these items very quickly. Very fast dungeon to speed your way through. You have the boots. You know it's not going to be locked. It's worth noting that we've found a good number of the fetch quest items, but are still sitting on them. The shovel that Parisian just picked up, Shady has not turned that in, nor the mushroom, which he found on Dark Death Mountain. And that mushroom check is pretty quick when you have the flute. Obviously, Meyer may be just the higher priority. I think we'll see him turn that in short order if he hasn't forgotten about it.
Oh, he may flute away to do that as soon as he is done with desert. And desert was boots locked. Of course, boots were relatively free on this seed since it forced you to do Aghanim. And we get a fire shield from desert.
Not something you'd go out of your way for, but not exactly unhappy to see it. You've got Parisian really just following the same path that Shady followed. Really hard to do anything else this seed, honestly. The only difference so far in any of the routing that these two runners have done is that Parisian fake flippered to the bow, while Shady's going to have to double dip Eastern whenever he gets the bow. And Shady committed to a much earlier Aga play than Parisian, and since then, these runners have been following each other's footsteps, just with a little bit of distance between the two.
Now, of course, anything could happen. So far, we still need medallions, and Shady still needs to find that bow. The fun thing about medallions, fun for the viewers and not for the runners, is that medallions can be almost virtually anywhere.
Not quite as trolly as the ice rod, but sometimes it sure feels like it, especially if you're looking for two of them.
Parisian player cleaned out his Paradox Cave, and we have Shady heading into the Landmo fight. Of course, Tempered and Fire Rod make the Landmo fight much easier than an NMG.
Even with a couple of those quick hops that those worms gave him, pretty solid 2-cycle from Shady.
Now, Parisian's going to enter the Dark World here and check Dark Death Mountain. He did not enter Hera, I believe. So that could be some potentially time saved. Of course, we don't know what's in the basement of Hera yet. It still could be important.
Yeah, and with two very trolly items, those two medallions potentially out there are a lot of small one-off spots that we've got left behind until this point. We see Shady taking care of one of them right now, the mushroom turn, which is just $20. But we have not seen Catfish. We couldn't access Catfish before. Shady has not been to Zora or any of the flipper checks. He now has the flippers. Maybe he's headed into Ice. Maybe he's headed to do the flippers now. Or maybe he's going to flute away.
Oh man, so close to picking up his bow there if he would have stayed and checked the flipper locations.
I think he's realized he's forgotten about Gina's cave while he was over here. He's going to just clean that up while it's on his mind.
Of course, we know he's not going to find anything here, but we have Parisian player now in his hookshot cave, so pretty soon he should be getting his flute and heading out, more than likely also to the Mire area.
Yeah, he'll get his news about Bombos. He'll do desert and probably still follow Shady. It's going to be interesting if and when we see any diversion in routing from this point forward. Like you said, Parisian maybe picking up a little bit of time not doing Hera, although he could just be planning on Hera after this mountain swing as well. So we'll see if he goes in or does not. Shady is swimming. It looks like he is going to do his flipper checks first before ice.
He's going to be very happy with what he finds. Oh, he's turning back to Ice Palace. He's...
Boy, if that's not a commentator's curse, I don't know what is. Check the item on the island, and he's going to head into ice first. I hope for his sake that he would be doing the flipper checks after coming out of this dungeon, but if Ice Palace throws a bunch of items at him, like both medallions and one of the medallions and the cane, he could get a little sidetracked.
And Parisian player is actually going to Hera. It'll be interesting to see if they clear out the basement or not after defeating Moldor.
Shady picking up the compass from the first chest in ice. Never what you want to see. You always want that small key. Or if you're looking for one item, you want it to be in that chest too. Parisian leaving after the first two chests. He's only sticking around Hera for the quick checks. Gets a fairy there, which is going to help him do Spike Cave coming up momentarily. This is a check that Shady opted to not do while he was up here, so this could pay some dividends for Parisian.
Yeah, saving a little bit of time on the quick Hera check, and if there's something here, he will be gaining on Shady.
Just a heart. That would have been a nice game, because I'm not sure where Shady would have routed that back in for a long time if there had been something required there.
And Shady setting up the Ice Palace bomb jump using the 2-pixel setup, and he got it.
That is not easy with sprites you're not familiar with. So maybe Shady plays with this sprite a lot, or maybe he's just learned his shadows very well. I know I have to set that up with the back of my sprites that I play with, so good on Shady being able to do that with a very non-standard sprite.
I am a big fan of the shadow setups, that way I can play around with the randomizer sprites, but yeah, that is definitely a handy thing to learn.
If you don't know your bomb jumps, please learn them with the shadows so that you can play any sprite you want and not have any problems.
Parisian player activating his flute now. And just a big heart from the Freezor room.
Shady gonna go for a more difficult bomb jump here. Nails it very smoothly. If you check that Freezor chest first before going to the right side through the hookshot room, that is the fastest way to route both of those checks in that order. So many different ways to route Ice Palace. You really only need the Ice Palace bomb jump to route it efficiently, because routing it vanilla is, well, nobody likes that. But there are many different ways to route this dungeon, depending on what items you have, depending on what items you find, depending what chests you'd like to put off for last. Shady busting out some very advanced routing here. Always nice to see that.
Yeah, it's always nice when you also have the Cane of Samaria. That way you can basically route Ice Palace however you want to, because you could just cheat on the main puzzle of the dungeon. And we have Parisian player picking up his flippers. He learned the news about Mire, and Shady is finding just the map back here.
Right side of Ice Palace, so often having absolutely nothing. And another heart there. Iced Palace just full of love today.
I believe Shady was checking there if he had the big key. And he will be heading down into the iced tea room. Meanwhile, Parisian player is in the desert and going to clear that out fairly quickly.
If Shady opts to do the flipper checks, which I expect him to after this dungeon, assuming he finds nothing on Cold Stare or in the big chest, which he hasn't checked yet either, I would expect him with that bow to potentially go over to finish off Eastern and check pod. He may play himself into a pod check, which could be good or bad for him, just based on the fact that he still has to complete Eastern.
And 300 rupees. So yeah, as you were mentioning, that would probably be it. If he gets the bow, that would be the most item dense check, because Pod has 5, and he knows there's still one more on the Armos Knights.
Yeah, it definitely would not be wrong for him to do that. There are still some one-off locations that he has not checked. He has not seen Catfish. He has not done Zorid. He might go all the way to Zora if he does some of the flipper checks. Then we know that's not going to pay off for him, so he still has that shovel spot to take care of. And with not quite enough magic, due to his routing here in the dungeon, he's going to have to burn a blue goo to get a Cold Stare out of his shell. Takes a couple hits in the corner from Cold Stare, but with the fire rod and the extra shots, cleans it up pretty effortlessly.
And that is crystal number 4 for Shady Force. Meanwhile, Parisian player is in his Landmo fight, trying to hit it with the silver arrows, but just slashing with the Butter Sword. Butter Sword makes these Landmos very easy. And Shady is fluting. Oh, nope, he changed his mind.
Whew, that was close.
He is going to be very, very happy he did not take that swag duck away.
Mere frames away from being carried off to someplace he did not want to go. He's going to pick up his bow. It's going to be very interesting to see how he routes the remaining checks, because he also has Pyramid Fairy open to him. And I imagine he's going to prioritize finishing off Eastern just because he knows that could have been an item he got much longer ago than he did. But he could also want to route a lot of the other single checks that he's got remaining.
I believe this is going to be the Pod Eastern play through the Aghanim portal.
This is an interesting way to get there if he's going this way. He could have just fluted to 5, probably a little faster.
I probably would have taken the bomb at that point. And Parisian player making a play on Swamp Palace, it appears.
This is very interesting. He may feel like he is behind, considering how linear the seed has been since he's gotten to Dark World. He would be right in that assumption, and if that's why he's making somewhat of an unorthodox play, I can't say that's wrong either. He knows he did Aghanim last possible place of absolutely possible. He did things that were out of logic before he did Aghanim, and the seed has been very linear since he arrived in the Dark World.
And Shady doing that long catfish check. Let's see if there's anything here.
Yeah, he's going to combo catfish with the rest of these flipper checks.
And that's a very good point as well, because he did not do this area at all earlier in the game.
Well, he's going to get his Butter Sword out of it, but nothing he really wants to find.
Now, Parisian player checking through Swamp. It's 6 items plus the green pendant, so potentially 7 items through this dungeon.
I'm very surprised Parisian is opting for this instead of Pod, which is why that's what makes me think he feels he needs to do this because he's behind. Otherwise, I feel like he would be in Pod with that bow and having found nothing from the bow in Eastern. He may just realize, okay, this Dark World's been very linear. Aghanim was super late for me. Let's take a bit of a gamble and try to pull ourselves back in. Or he could just be going for the ultimate efficient full clear because he'll get the green pendant here and could turn that into Sahasrahla as he goes on his way to Pod. We still are 3 items short of go mode, despite all the items we found in fairly quick succession.
And Shady is heading over to that Pod Eastern play right now.
Makes a lot of sense for Shady. He knows that it's possible his opponent fake flipper to that bow, and if Armos Knights has an item, he needs to get it sooner rather than later. And he might as well combo a check of Pod at the same time. I imagine he'll do that. He'll probably finish off Eastern first, and then step back in the portal and do Pod. That would be my guess, but we'll see. We'll see which one he prioritizes.
Of course, for the fans of the randomizer, we have 3 items that we're looking for that could all potentially be on that pedestal.
That's right, the pedestal absolutely in logic. Shady has gotten 1 pendant out of Hera. Parisian turned down that pendant when he was up there earlier. We have no book, so we have no way of knowing what is on the pedestal at this moment, but certainly the longer we go without finding any of these items we're looking for, the higher the chances are that one of them is sitting there.
First item out of Pod just being 10 bombs, and Parisian player is headed to the left side of Swamp.
So Shady is gonna, looks like, full clear Pod before finishing off Eastern. I guess he may figure if there's something good on Armos Knights, he's already missed it by a long time, so might as well clear out Pod first.
Well, he needs more than 1 item, so it definitely makes sense to clear out Pod first and see if he can't find 1 or 2 of them there.
Absolutely. Don't think there's much of a difference either way, so this is fine. Saves him a couple mirror transitions. Parisian doing that left side swamp first, gonna pick up a big 20. He's really hoping this is gonna be something. And it's the Cane of Samaria.
Oh man, that's huge.
Huge find for Parisian. Left side swamp paying off enormously. There's a chance if Shady goes into swamp, he may not check left side.
Oh man, and Shady finds Quake.
We've got items in pendant dungeons on both sides here.
Of course, Quake does nothing for Shady without that Cane of Samaria.
Yeah, both good finds. Both players feeling great about their finds, but that's definitely more of an advantage for Parisian at this point. Left side swamp may, at the rate Shady's going, be one of the last places he checks in the game.
A lot of runners just have a disdain for checking left side swamp because of the time involved, but I've seen B29, it pays out a lot of times.
And if Shady finds something like Bombos, or Shady finds Bombos, I guess, which is the only thing we're missing here from our perspective, if he finds Bombos in here, he could get baited into a double dip of Mire, in addition to the double dip of Eastern he's already going to have to do. Parisian finds the big key here in the flooded room. He's going to go up the stairs. I don't know if he's got the stair climb. Yes, he does. Got up the stairs the first try. Good job there. Those stairs like to spit you back down the first time you walk up, unless you're holding the right directions. And picks up a blue cane in the big chest for his trouble.
All right, we have Shady heading to the back of Pod. We're about to see if there's any progression back here. Of course, we know where the item he's looking for the most, the Canis Maria is, and it's gonna be a question of how long does it take for him to check left side swamp. Oh, and there's Bombos in swamp.
That's actually good news for Shady that it's not here in pod. But he's going to have to get to swamp, and he's going to have to get here quickly. And there's still the potential, if he does the back of swamp first and finds Bombos, he may opt to skip the left side, which would be another disaster. So suddenly we have a lot of chances that Parisian could be right back in this, depending on how thorough Shady is going to be.
And as chat is astutely pointing out, the pedestal is now dead. We are in no mode.
Maybe next time, chat. Well, this had been such a solid lead from about the 25-minute mark for Shady as soon as he finished Aghanim and picked up those boots, and suddenly we are thrown into a race that I don't even know how to guess at who might be in the lead at this point. It completely depends what these players are going to do after they finish their respective dungeons here.
And Parisian player takes quick work of Argus and gets his green pendant, and he'll probably be heading over to pod next.
Shady thinking long and hard about killing Helmasaur. He's paused in that doorway for a long time. He's decided to go kill Helma, though. Looking for that last item.
Parisian player is in really good shape here. He'll go to pod, more than likely turn in green pendant and get his Canis Maria. Sorry, his Quake Medallion.
Yeah, this race could have just turned in one moment.
Never mind, he makes a liar out of me again. He is going to do the Meyer play now, which makes sense. It's a crystal, and if Quake is here, then it's one less pendant dungeon that you have to dive.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're both in a little bit of shock from finding all three of those Gomite items immediately, but this makes complete sense from Parisian's perspective. A pod play before going here would be super gambly.
Yeah, and he also has Ice Palace yet to clear as well.
So really, this hinges on Shady's next move. He's got some things around the overworld to clean up. He could do Fat Fairy. He could go check the dig spot. He has not done Spike Cave. He's got the basement of Hera. If he gets pulled into any of those locations before going to Swamp, now Swamp is pretty item dense, so we definitely could see him head over there too. It's all just a matter of how heavily those items he's left in the overworld are weighing on his mind.
And yeah, that'll be the big question. If he goes to Swamp and he does not clear left side, he could be baited into an early buyer without the Canis Maria.
Yes, and as GFE points out in chat, he still has to finish Eastern after this, so he'll be doing that and then making his decision that pretty much the rest of his game depends on his next decision after Eastern. Parisian clearing out Meyer. Nothing really useful at all that our runners could find here. They've got all their weapons, they've got all their armor. Shady making pretty quick work here of Helmasaur. He's going to get an item, but it's not going to be the item he's looking for. Boy, what a disaster Book would be here. Just 3 bombs.
I was thinking the same thing too, though, Blaine. If he finds Book, he may be baited to check tablets and possibly read what's on the pedestal.
Yeah, with Book, he would be thinking, all right, let's go up to do Ether Tablet and Hera Basement and Spike Cave, and that would suddenly look a lot more attractive. So thankfully, he dodges that bullet. Parisian had missed the switch there. He does have enough time to walk back, hit the switch, and come through here before the torches go out. That's good.
Yeah, and that one item there is just a piece of heart.
Well, he actually doesn't realize he's not. Yeah, he's not in go mode. Never mind. We're in no mode. The runners are not in go mode yet. There's only one other chest the big key can be in. And that's going to be this chest that he doesn't have a small key to get to, so. Shady going to finish up Eastern, and then that's when he's going to have to make his big decision. Some players will avoid Pendant Swamp Palace for as long as possible, knowing how long it takes to full clear, and knowing if they go in there, they're committing themselves most likely to a full clear.
It's definitely a tough decision to make. You're missing 2 items if you're Shady right now. If you're only missing 1, you may be more prone to check one-offs, but missing 2, an item-dense location like Swamp might make sense. If anything, he'll run out of options fairly quickly without having to kind of smart it.
Yeah, certainly he'd have much more potential to make a big time mistake if the layout of items in Swamp was, if he had found Bombos in Pod. That was a much larger disaster that was looming for him. I would imagine he probably feels pretty decent about his position, honestly. So if he goes into Swamp next, I think he'd probably be full clearing it. But I've been wrong before.
Parisian with a nice cane dash there.
Definitely seen a lot of these NMG strats coming out of Parisian here in Meyer. Should be seeing a very quick Vitreous kill also with the Silver Arrows, although he's a little low on health. One or two stray eyeballs from Vitreous are not unheard of.
Shady is fluting to 3. And Parisian not bothering to powder the anti-fairy or anything. He's just going to go straight into the fight with his silver arrows.
Shady may be doing the blacksmith route here, which neither player has touched just yet. He can check all of the spots along the way, but we know this is not what he needs to do. However, he will, if he does this to completion, be right outside Swamp.
And Parisian player makes quick work of Vitreous, and they get their crystal, and they will more than likely, I would think they'd be going to Ice Palace next.
Seems very reasonable. Still 1 item short of go mode for Parisian. Ice Palace is looking very, appetizing. The last crystal dungeon he can do at the moment. Shady's gonna do the hammer pegs. He's gonna turn in the frog. He's going to bring the purple chest down. Probably check the shovel spot on his way. And then he'll be standing outside Swamp, so it's not the worst thing he could have chosen to do if he decides to go into Swamp at the end of it.
So is Parisian doing the Pyramid Fairy first?
It looks like, he's going to opt for that over Ice. If he's right here, in his mind, it saves him doing a full clear of Ice. So this makes a good deal of sense, I think. He's going to go for the bomb dupe. If you screen transition on 0, you get your bomb back, just like Parisian did there.
Such a good trick, and it makes you travel that just a few seconds quicker, which could be the difference.
It doesn't save as much time going that way as it would if you were going the full way around, but certainly a time saver, and a very cool trick to bust out, very swaggy.
Nothing of note from the Pyramid Fairy, and we have a shovel check incoming. Oops, he forgot to switch to the shovel.
Gonna have to dodge his bird there. A little bit of love. We have exhausted the item pool. There's really no useful items remaining in this item pool. We have all of the swords, we have all of the mails, we have all of the safeties. Anything that they find is not going to really help them complete this game from this point forward, except for the 2 items that Shady's missing and the 1 that Parisian's missing that we know where they all are.
Well, this is going to be the moment of truth for Shady after he turns in this purple chest, if he ventures to Swamp after this. I would imagine he would. I'm struggling to think of other locations for him to check.
The only thing that could trip him up is doing Pyramid Fairy himself here instead of Swamp, which would take him away from Swamp and make Swamp less appealing after Pyramid Fairy. But he may go Swamp first, and then he's thinking, if not Swamp, I'll do Pyramid Fairy, and that looks like what he's doing.
All right, the moment of truth will be if he does left side, because if he skips left side, he's going to find Bombos before the cane.
And if he does, a lot of players will do the back of Swamp first. Although when it is a pendant, well, it's green pendant, he'll probably do the back of Swamp first. That does not mean he won't go left side if he does that. Some runners will just do it in that order. There were 2 items on the left side. So if he's planning on skipping it, maybe saying to himself, if there's 1 item left on the left side, I won't go back in. That's some runners' plan as well. At least that won't be an option. There will be 2 items left over there. It may help him come back in if he does the back of it first. And we got Parisian going through ice, so we know he's just going to find some hearts in here.
And we see he has the Cane of Samaria, so he's just going to full clear, skipping the bomb jump.
If you were paying attention to Shady's Ice Palace routing earlier, you see Parisian doing a little bit different routing. He's going to do the right side first with that hook shot, whereas Shady went down into the freezer room, did the bomb jump across, do the right side. Just all these little different routing strats you can do in this dungeon. It's one of the most frustrating dungeons to learn as a new player, but there are some very interesting minor route optimizations you can do in here that are really cool as you get more advanced. All right, this is the first moment of truth for Shady. He's going to do the south chest, and then will he go left or will he go north?
Of course, for a close match, we're really hoping he notices that there's 2 items on that left side, even if he full clears the back first.
And he's going left, so he will be doing the left side first. That is great news for shadyforce. He's going to find that cane, which is great to find, but doesn't do anything for him by itself. And then shortly after, momentarily hesitated. He was thinking about pushing that switch and then realized he was going to flood his key. So minor crisis averted there.
I wouldn't think he would exit before full clearing. Technically,
No.
He does have Quake and the cane.
Oh, that's a good point, actually. You're right, because when Parisian did this, he had no medallions. That would be a super gamble for Shady to exit upon finding that cane. I guess you're right, though. It is a possibility. He could think that he's got to go straight to T-Rock. So just another bullet he has to dodge.
Hopefully, for his sake, that green pendant tempts him to stay in full clear.
I feel like we've been spending the last 20 minutes coming up with ways that Shady could ruin his game here. All these different situations that we hope that he doesn't do.
Parisian player right now checking the Ice Tea room and getting his big key. So he's doing a full clear, as you mentioned, just a slightly different route, but he's going to find the same thing in Ice, which was not a whole lot of nothing. But just time that he has to spend searching for that Quake medallion before he makes it back to pod.
Shady getting a little NMG route in that. He was going to the right side first, but realizes there's an item over here to get to. So he's just one chest away from his cane, and then hopefully he stays and continues.
And he's continuing. Oh, he's thinking about it.
Oh
man, he's
Shady.
thinking about it.
Oh, Shady. Oh, no.
No.
Oh, no, Shady. Oh, no.
He's making the gamble. I can't fault him on that gamble.
He thought long and hard about it.
It's painful that we know that his progression's there, but he's going to be full clearing Turtle Rock now.
Oh, that is heartbreak. He is going to be heartbroken. Now, there's still a chance Parisian puts off pod, but I can't see Parisian putting off pod for that much longer, so I think Parisian's going to hit go mode before Shady in this spot, and that's going to feel terrible. And in fact, when Shady finishes T-Rock and has not found his Bombos medallion, he may also then go back to Hera and check Spike Cave. So he may not even go right back there afterwards.
Yeah, and the Go mode TR usually isn't that much time saved versus normal clearing TR unless the keys are laid out just right, but what's going to hurt is making another Death Mountain ascent.
Exactly. And honestly, it's not... It's very hard to call what Shady's doing there the wrong move. If the item he's looking for is in Turtle Rock, that could be a game-winning move, what he just did. We know that it isn't, and it's just unfortunate to have that information. It's not exactly quick to go from the left side all the way back through Pendant Swamp. You know, that's at least another, 4 minutes or so that it's going to take you to finish that dungeon. So if it's 4 minutes you think might not be required, I can't fault him too hard for doing it.
And Parisian player made very quick work of Cold Stare, and he is going to check the shovel spot, I assume, first. Maybe
Butterstone Cold Stare, one of the most satisfying bosses in the game.
No doubt. And we'll see where Parisian is headed after this. I would imagine he would go to the pod area, turn in his green pendant.
Yeah, if for no other reason than he has the green pendant, and typically when you complete a green pendant dungeon, you want to turn that green pendant in shortly thereafter, because you feel pretty silly getting the green pendant and 40 minutes later you turn it in and you get a piece of progression. That's never a good feeling. So this route works out perfectly for him. He gets to turn in his pendant. He's going to be pulled right into pod afterwards, and he's going to find his go mode item.
To answer a question in chat real quick, matches in Swiss usually do try to match up the same records. If we have an odd number of players, if someone perhaps dropped, there may be a situation where one of the matches is not the same record, but for the most part, they'll be the same record.
And just to repeat the information we said earlier, there are 512 players in this tournament, 7 rounds of Swiss, and I think roughly, without, maybe not taking into account some edge cases here, but 5-2 is the magic record you're going to need to advance from the Swiss portion of this tournament.
We see Parisian player in pod. He will be entering. Oh, he's leaving pod.
Parisian forgot to turn in the green pendant, I think.
Pardon, I was looking at Shady's screen on the side, and he finally gets through the chain chomp room. Nothing good there. For Shady, you would want to hope he doesn't find Book and lead himself down another area and more time loss.
Yeah, Book is not great, although I strongly suspect after finishing T-Rock, Shady probably goes back over towards that tablet anyway, because he's got the Hera basement and he's got Spike Cave left over there. So at this point, now that he's already climbed the mountain again, Book's not going to be as painful as it would have been before, but still, anything that pulls him away from Swamp any longer is just going to be worse and worse.
Oh my god, it's Mr. Clippy.
I don't know if I knew that was the bunny sprite for this particular sprite. That's excellent.
I'm not the hugest fan of the cursor sprite, but that was amazing.
The alternate sprites, the bonk sprite and the lifting sprite, for this particular sprite, may be the best ones in the entire game. I'm gonna have to find who actually created this one. I know there's a lot of sprite creators out there for the randomizer. I would love to give them props by name right now. I just don't know who they are. I wish I was creative.
Now we have Shady going to do the Mimic Cave, and Parisian player, he has picked up his Cane of Samaria. He's in go mode.
He's got everything he needs for this seed. He is off to Turtle Rock, and there does not seem a very realistic opportunity for Shady to turn this back around. It would take a disaster from here on out for Parisian.
And as you mentioned, they picked up every piece of equipment aside from the riot shield that you could pick up. We have Red Mail, Butter Sword going into GT after he's done with Turtle Rock.
Oh, we were wrong. There's still one thing that was missing. It was the bug net.
Of course, you know, that bug net you have to do swagging him.
We can dream. I'm trying to do the mental math on how close this race would be right now. If Shady had stayed in Swamp, we would really not be separated by that much. Maybe he'd have a 2, maybe 3-minute lead. It would have taken him a couple minutes to get over to where Quake was, but...
Where was the big key in Mire? Because that would have made a difference how quickly he went through Misery Mire.
The big key was in the middle chest, I believe. It was not on the right side. Maybe it was early, actually. Was the big key early? Because I know Parisian went through looking for items. Well, we're going to find out again. But you're right, going through Mire, I mean, it might have been just neck and neck with Parisian. Again, can't fault Shady for what he did. If the item he was looking for was in here, that's a game-winning move, and we're saying how brilliant it was. It just didn't pay off this time.
Yeah, unfortunately, that is the randomizer for you.
Yeah, if you're not prepared for your moves to not work out sometimes, and if you're not comfortable with having decisions you make potentially lose you games, then this is not the game for you.
That said, we welcome players of all skill levels. I remember my first randomizer took me about 6 hours to complete.
Oh, absolutely. Heck, this is the tournament. And if anything is proven that this appeals to players of all skill levels and this community's welcoming of all skill levels, we've got 512 people in this tournament. Nobody dreamed this tournament could have that many people. There's just so many people playing Randomizer these days.
Unfortunately, Shady just missing the Kane strats there.
That's another strategy that I'd have trouble doing with a weird spray like him. So maybe that played a part into it. Going into his Trinex fight, he'll be able to make pretty quick work of Trinex with the Butter Sword. And then he's going to be pretty disappointed leaving here without the item he's looking for.
Unfortunately for him, Parisian player will be leaving here and heading left straight to GT. Oh man, those chain chomps, they know how to really put some damage on you.
And when they're in a bad mood, you feel it. Very nice last phase of Trinex for Shady. He's hoping for an item here, and there's not even an item on Trinex, so I think he knew already. I mean, it feels bad right now for Shady because he knows that the item he's looking for is someplace that he left. It might be the Hera basement, it might be Spike Cave, it might be Fat Fairy, which he had access to forever ago. It might be Swamp. He doesn't know which one it is, but at this point, he's pretty sure he could have had the item he's looking for a while ago.
Yeah, he's heading over to Hera right now.
Not exactly happy that, again, it's Tower not letting him in there, but... yeah, he looks like he's going to do the Hera basement here, and I can't blame him for this either. He's already up here. There's 2 items over in this area of Death Mountain that he has yet to pick up. Makes sense while you're up here. Give these a check, but he's not going to find what he's looking for.
Yeah, we have one of everybody's favorite rooms. The Hera basement, the tile room, the break room. Oh, it looks like he missed the break room strats, though.
He was a little too far to the right, I think, so he did not get the iframes from that peg.
Now let's see what's in this Hera basement. We know it's not nothing he needs, but it is just 3 bombs.
Definitely didn't need 3 bombs. He's gonna do his spike cape check, and he's gonna get his heart container. Hoping for a fairy here so he can do it without any health up, and he does get a fairy, so he does not have to pull out the cape or anything. Parisian is headed into Trinex, and he's going to collect his last crystal here in just a few seconds, and then he'll be headed to Ganon's Tower.
All right, Shady, where you headed? And Parisian player taking out the ice head. Oh, he takes a death.
Takes the death to the fire head. That is painful. He will be going back to the safety, not quite the safety door, but the big chest door, since he did full clear. Well, he opened the big chest, which a lot of times in Go mode you won't do. But in this case, it helps him because he doesn't have as long a walk to get back there. I'm sure that doesn't feel great for him. We know it's not really going to cost him much, but when you do that in a race like this, that, you know, first off, it's been kind of a slower race. You had to do a couple strange dips. You put off doing Aghanim forever. I'm sure he feels like he just really messed up here. He's probably not. His blood pressure is probably not going to go down until he actually finishes Ganon now.
Yeah, taking a death an hour and 30 in definitely doesn't feel good.
Especially when you know it was a death as avoidable as that one was. When you're as well equipped as these players are, and you're as skilled at this game as these players are, that kind of death kind of comes out of nowhere and feels even worse than a death early might feel. And Shady is doing Fat Fairy. Can't blame him for this at all. This is another location he kind of left for a long time. At this point, like we said, there's no good options for where this item is. Anywhere it is, Shady's going to feel pretty bad. If it was here, well, you could have gotten this item at least an hour ago. So there's really no good options. Any place that he finds it, we know where he's going to find it, but in his mind, anywhere he finds it's going to be pretty depressing.
Parisian player just missing the 0 cycle on Trinex there with the backdoor strats.
Not the easiest trick to get, and a lot of times you can't even go for it because you need Butter Sword and the boots. But still cool to pull off, feels good, and he gets his revenge on Trinex by taking him down the second time.
Alright, Parisian player is going to be heading left into Ganon's Tower. Now, we don't have the bot on this channel, but we like to play a game when our leading runner is about to head to Ganon's Tower. There are 22 locations where that big key could be in Ganon's Tower. What do you think it's going to be this time, Gwen?
I'm a big fan of doing the right side, so I'm going to say that he will not get a key in the first 2 chests, and then he should do the Stalfos room, mirror, and do the right side. So I'm going to say chest number 9. I'm
always a big fan of 13 myself, assuming they do the first 6 chests on the right side. That will place it in the rando room, which for some reason it always seems to be when I play this game.
It's called the rando room for a reason. You see it in rando, and a lot of times rando, it's... Shady has bit the bullet. He is back in Swamp. I actually, I don't know if there's much else he's got as an option except for a return to Swamp. He pretty much checked off all of the remaining boxes.
There's a small key, but Parisian is going to mirror and go to the left side.
Okay, not doing right side, which is honestly, if there's a common meta game for Ganon's Tower, it is if you find a small key, go right. He's going to pass up the mirror shield there on the torch.
Bob lives another day.
Can't blame him for that, and yeah, Bob will appreciate. If we see Bob later, he will appreciate that. Shady Force just about 60 seconds away from disappointment.
Yeah, it's definitely not going to feel good for him seeing that there. It's a gamble that's you can't fault him for taking though, and there's half magic there for a Parisian player.
So this whole time I've been talking about having all of the safeties we could possibly get, and I completely forgot about half magic. Not something they're going to need as well equipped as they are, but they've got it anyway. Shady Force at least not going up to the big chest just yet. He's thinking about it again. Okay, he's not going back up to the big chest just yet. He's going to get his Bombo. He's going to get Bombos and Mirror out of here. There it is. Shady's in go mode. I'm sure he doesn't feel happy about it. It's a feeling that everyone who runs this game is familiar with.
Now, I believe Parisian players checked 7 locations so far and nothing.
No, I think actually 8 if we count the torch. Or am I bad at math?
I believe this one's number 8.
2 on the right side, 1 on the torch, 4 in the Stalfos room, and then 1 in the fire room.
So you're correct. Yeah, I forgot the fire bar room.
It's been a seed of trials and tribulations for all of us.
I just so rarely see a key in that fire bar room. "10 is triple bombs, 11 a piece of hearts. The book is number
Hey,
12.
there's the book.
And my guess is out. There's a piece of heart at 13.
I think I said 9, so I was way off. Although I did say it was going to be right side. Parisian just didn't route it the way I wanted him. So really, it's his fault.
And we see Shady going into Misery Mire. He needs nothing else. He's just trying to get done as soon as possible.
It's worth mentioning that I'm sure Parisian every 30 seconds is glancing over at the race room, expecting a dot done, because he has done a lot of this seed as well. And anytime you get an hour and 40 in, hour and 42, hour and 45, you're expecting to lose at any minute.
Yeah, and we were talking about, advantage to one player or another because of certain gambles, but it really swung back and forth a couple times until Parisian player made that swamp play.
We had some wild swings in this one. Yeah, Shady, I think, finished his Aga fight 8 or 9 minutes ahead of Parisian, and the seed was so linear from that point. It did not seem like Parisian was going to have a chance to catch up, but in the end, the seed was trolly enough, and Shady made one gamble that turned it on its edge. And there's no big key for Parisian. He's going to have to go to the right side. It's either tile room or on one of the 4 right side chests. So if it's on the right side here, Parisian's going to feel even worse than he felt a few minutes ago, thinking that he could have had this as soon as he walked in here.
That's a very good point. So this will be number 18. This is the next check. And we see Shady already into the basement in Misery Mire.
With all the crazy swings we've had in this, we haven't had a chance to really point out the execution level of both these runners has been so even. This race is not. There's no difference in this race based on how either of the runners have played. It has really just been a couple of the decisions that it's come down to. So it's been a real pleasure to watch these runners execute. And
Number
there's the big key.
21.
Last but one chest for Parisian. He's got his big key. He's headed up the tower. He can't be feeling great, but we know he's got a humongous lead at this point. It would take a real disaster for anything to happen to this. And a really excellent Vitreous fight here for Shady, getting the 0 cycle Vitreous. Really well done for him.
We have Parisian player making quick work of the Mimic's room.
Shady's on his way to Ganon's tower. He's just, he's going to get in the tower before Parisian's finished, but...
Yeah, I was about to mention, unfortunately for Shady, Parisian may be at Aga 2 or just outside before he gets up there.
Yeah, making very quick work of this gauntlet, even with some bad RNG in this room. It won't be long now till he reaches the top.
I always love that fire rod shot. It doesn't seem like it hits anything, but the hitbox is so wide that it always clips that skeleton.
Completely free for some reason. Again, this is a very well programmed game. Very solid 2-cycle on Landmo 2 for Parisian. He is through the gauntlet and into the upper floors here. Now, Shady could pull back a little bit of time going right side, which I will expect him to do, only because most players will do that when they find a key there. He'll claw back a little bit of time there, but it won't be enough unless, like we said, something disastrous happens on Parisian's side.
Ganon falls are still a thing, so it's not over until it's over, but Parisian player definitely has the advantage right now.
Yeah, maybe a sprite despawn might even this up a little bit, but running NMG as he does, I'm sure Parisian is aware of that. He got through that room clean enough where I don't think it's even a possibility, and we're good. No sprite despawn.
And Shady mirrored, so he will not be making up any more time.
No, he'll be following the same path. Well, these players routed a lot of this seed the same. Why diverge at this point?
And Parisian's up at the Moldorm 2 fight.
Ooh.
And takes a fall.
Little troll right off the bat there for you. You can dash through Moldorm, but sometimes if you're on the wrong line, wrong x-axis, he will say no. Parisian skipping the last chest knows that there's absolutely nothing that he can find there that's going to help him.
Yeah, there's nothing at all that he would need. And he is going into the Aga 2 fight. Meanwhile, Shady is just now in the fire bar room. I believe that was a double. I think there was no space in between. That one may have also been a double, though.
I think that was a double. That was a very nice double on that second one. Ooh. A little trolled by the blue ball there. And he gets the 2-2-1-1 on Aga 2. Not the easiest pattern to deal with, so that's a nice 4-cycle in my opinion. All we have left is Ganon now. And with Butter Sword, with Silver Arrows, with every safety possible, this shouldn't be too much of an ordeal here.
Alright, Ganon, what do you have for us today? What kind of burrito would you be? He would be a spicy barbacoa. Do you have a favorite Ganon text?
You know, there are new ones that I still haven't seen. Watching some of the games in this tournament, I've seen a lot that I never even knew that they were added in the last version, and sometimes I'm just sick of playing the seed, so I don't even read what Ganon says. So I still think there's some out there I've never even seen.
Yeah, same here. And Parisian took a few Firebat hits, but he's in phase 3 now, so unless he falls, this should be his game.
Yeah, and even if the health becomes more of a problem, he does have another red potion if he wants to use it, so It would really take an unlucky fall or two at this point. He's got him lined up for the first hit. Doesn't get the torch glitch, but doesn't need it.
There's hit number 2. Meanwhile, Shady is just now past the ice armors.
Shady gonna be frustrated again, finding nothing here.
Parisian trying to set up for the double. And that's
He's
it.
got it. Very nice cannon fight for him.
Very good game from Parisian player. GG's to him.
Parisian finishes with an official speed racing TV time of 1:51.01. Very well done. Not the easiest seed to deal with, and I'm sure he didn't feel like he was winning for a large portion of the second half of that.
Oh no, missing AGA 1 putting it off until later definitely probably felt like he was behind, but he made a strong comeback with that swamp play. That was a game changer.
Absolutely. Really turned it on its head.
There's Shady getting his big key. He's about to go up and ascend the tower.
We'll see if Parisian would like to come in for an interview.
Shady just now starting his gauntlet.
This is the cathartic part of a race. After you are seeing the other player finish, you're super well equipped. All you've got left is Ganon's Tower and Gauntlet, and you can just go to town, destroy everything, get rid of any of that frustration you've got pent up.
Anytime you're in Ganon's Tower, at the very least, when your opponent finishes, you know it was a close race.
Yeah, unfortunately, with the gamble he took, I'm sure it's not much of a consolation now, but he ran a great race. This was not decided by an execution blunder or a big mistake or a death at a bad time. This is really just routing. He made a gamble. I'm sure for as long as he stood there thinking about it, I'm sure he weighed the pros and cons briefly of leaving versus staying. It just, in this seed, it didn't pay off. In others, it might have been a huge play.
Shady just now going to do his Wizrobe rooms, the best use of the Canis of Mario.
Hey,
And we have Parisian player joining us here.
just to inform, when I connected my headphones, like the sound of the game currently did not go in through my headphones. So if there's any sound from the game, tell me, and then I cut the sound or anything, because I know I need to keep the recording anyway. So
No, I think you're good. We've switched over to Shady's audio, so you're fine.
yeah.
GG, man.
You'll
First of
hear
all,
maybe. Yeah, thanks.
it was a fun seed to watch. This was back and forth all the way. Tell me first how you felt about trying desperately to avoid Aghanim, only to end up having to do Aghanim anyway.
Yeah, I was a bit stressed because, to be honest, I almost forgot at some point. So that's why I found some things to do, and I recalled I could sequence break. And it's just after that that was, oh yeah, I can do Aghanim. And because yeah, it's the only thing I could do at that point, I think.
Yeah, there was an early moment in this. Shady did not do any of the sequence breaks. He did not fake flipper. He did not find the bow early, so he couldn't finish Eastern. But he decided on Aghanim pretty much as soon as he ran out of other good things to do. It wasn't even the last spot for him, but he went and did Aghanim very early. So he got those boots, and then he, very linear Dark World once you got in there. You, meanwhile, were running all over the place, doing everything but Aghanim, so we were saying he really wants to try to avoid Aghanim. And in the end, had to do Aghanim anyway. So there was some separation early, but what really turned it around was that Swamp Palace play. That play into Swamp is where the seed really started to turn, and it got very close and very exciting. And if not for a couple gambles the other way, could have been down to the wire. Shady's actually finishing up Aga 2 right now, so this was a very close race. It was great to watch.
My calculation was I need to do Ice Palace as late as possible, and considering I needed still 3 objects, I needed the cane and I needed two medallions. I was like, not everything's going to be in Ice Palace, so let's do. I have high chances to get something in Swamp, considering it's also a green pendant. So I have 7 objects given by that. So probably even if I do Ice Palace, I'll have to do Swamp after that. So that's why I went here right away.
And that play worked out very well for you. Unfortunately, your opponent, by the time he got into Swamp, he had the Quake Medallion from Pods, so he actually mirrored out after getting the cane from the left side. So he did not get Bombos until much later when he had to revisit the Swamp Palace.
What I thought was, okay, maybe Aghanim was not the best play, but like if I had something interesting, if I had, for example, a hook shot in my sequence break, then maybe or gloves would have been interesting, because we spent 35 minutes without any gloves. Maybe that was a mistake, and then still I was pretty sure I was ahead when I entered T-Rock. That was my feeling, because everything went pretty smoothly after that. However, when I died to Trinex stupidly, I started hating myself. And then when I saw that the big key in Ganon's Tower was on my 21st chest, I was like, okay, if he did the left side gamble, which he could because there was a key in the 2 first spots, and the difference is, let's say, 1 minute, then I'm going to be very, very mad about these two.
Yeah, we were saying those deaths kind of, as well equipped as you are in some seeds like this one, sometimes those deaths just kind of come out of nowhere. So that Trinex death, when you're in a seed that late, and it's kind of been not necessarily the most direct seed, it never feels good. You probably spent the next 15 minutes looking at the race room every couple seconds, expecting the finish time. You both probably were for a good 20 minutes there at the end of that seed. And speaking of which, Shady has finished. He's defeated Ganon. He actually did the same route as you in Ganon's Tower. He went right. He picked up that key, but did not go to the right side. He did the rest of the left side first. So he really had the same route in a lot of places in this seed.
Yeah, when I went right after I didn't find the big key, I hoped that it was in the tire room so that the right side gamble was not working, because usually people right side gamble don't go for tire room anyway. So like, at least if it's tire room, that good thing about left side or right side might not happen. So
And I guess
Also, early death in the I run because 3 hearts and hammer, and I don't play a lot Rondo, so I'm not used to play with a hammer and that few health early in the game. So
Yeah, that's exactly what we were saying actually. And coming from the NMG background primarily for you, hammer in escape is not something you're really used to. So it's not the easiest. It's not the easiest weapon to hit enemies with in normal circumstances, much less when you're fighting all your muscle memory.
the one I fear is bomb, to be honest. But yeah, also in escape, I was farming a lot the enemies, and just before I needed the bombs, I got that 4 bomb drop. I was like, yeah, at least I won't. Maybe it's a time save that I won't have to come back there on. I don't know if he found the bombs early or not.
Yeah, he did pick up a bomb fairly early off drops. But yeah, that's especially with as late as power gloves were in this, it would have felt really bad to maybe even decide to go in the front door to try to check that later.
Also, a small mistake. I wanted to go to the what's it? The catfish, and forgot I did not have any gloves. That's one of my mistakes. But that cost me like
I think we all make
seconds,
that
maybe.
mistake every so often. Honestly, this power gloves is something you're so used to getting early that it can really mess up your routing if you forget those rocks.
I think I never went to check catfish at all.
No, that was one of the spots you had still not checked out. But understandable. With all the other things that you ended up having available once you got going in the Dark World, there were a lot of things. So there was never anything that pulled you back over there.
I didn't go. Didn't bring the frog. I didn't do the pegs. So yeah, there were still many things, and I barely went into pot. So I still had the full pot to complete before starting to think about something else.
Yeah, really worked out. We're also joined here by shadyforce. Shady, fantastic race. Sorry it had to end that way, but GG to you as well, sir.
Hey, thanks very much. How's it going, guys?
Doing well. Thanks.
Very good. This was such a back and forth race. It was so entertaining, and obviously we have to start with Swamp Palace. Walk us through the thought process after picking up that cane.
Well, I have the cane, and Turtle Rock is always the play, so I gotta take my cane and go to Turtle Rock. I feel like it's the better move, and I think I would make the same move again if it came up again. I don't think continuing in Swamp is the right play, but I'm not really sure. I don't know.
It's very hard to say. Nobody can sit here and say it's the wrong play. If it's a race winning play, if it happens to be in Turtle Rock, and we were having a lot of trouble figuring out who was in the lead at that point because Parisian was a little behind. You had done Aghanim a good deal ahead of Parisian, and then the Dark World was so linear, starting with the boots, that you basically held a good lead until those 3 items, both medallions and the cane, were withheld from you guys. And Parisian made the earlier swamp play. You made the earlier pod play, so we knew where all the items were, and we were having trouble working out who exactly was ahead of who. And we were coming up with scenarios where we hope you don't find that item and leave. We hope you don't skip left side. And in the end, we saw the thought you paused there for a good 6 or 7 seconds after picking up that cane, and you couldn't quite figure out what to do. And like you said, it's probably impossible to figure out what is actually the right play. It just happened to be not the right play this particular seed. But
Shady, when did you go to pod actually?
I can't remember. As soon as I found the bow from the hobo, and that would have been very shortly after I found the flippers.
Yes. So yeah, you did Eastern. You did Eastern pod at the same time.
Yeah, I went straight to pod and then did Eastern, so I did them both, and I full cleared pod. Yeah.
So it's fun because then everything makes sense about where you're routing. When you have both, then it makes sense to do Eastern and pod. And when you have Quake earlier, because Quake was my last object I needed. So then when you get the cane, it kind of makes sense to go to to Turtle Rock, considering all the objects in it. Whereas what I did, before going to Aganim, when I farmed a lot of things, but as usual as I do when I do the south part of the map, after the ice cave, I came back to Fake Flippers, went to Hobo and found the bow. So then my move was to go to Eastern Palace. And so after that, when I reached Dark World, I had no point in going in pod that early. So I did mostly the crystals, and when I had to choose between pendants, the most obvious one for me was Swamp. It's fun how sequence breaking and finding the bow really late in the run made me go to Pendant Swamp when you were routing. Made more sense to go to the pendant pod.
Yeah, that makes total sense, actually. If you've already full cleared Eastern rather than just dipped Eastern like me, there's no point going back. Yeah, that makes total sense. So, it's just the randomizer, isn't it? It's just the way it works.
I think we mentioned a few times during the run, if you're not prepared to have this happen sometime, a 50-50 call that doesn't work out, or you made a more efficient play that gave you a different loadout of items, so later you make a different call and that call ends up being wrong and it's no fault of your own. I mean that's rando, right? Like that's sometimes it's in your favor and sometimes it's not, and that's what makes it fun for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, like it was a bit tough when I saw the dot done. I mean, in one sense, it's obviously not a tough loss because Parisian's a super strong player. He's going to beat lots of people in this tournament. But in another sense, I think I've played the seed fairly well. I think I've made good decisions, and I think I've executed fairly well. And then it was just really annoying. Then I was like, it just hasn't really paid off. So it's just the way it goes sometimes.
As I told Liam and Juan before you arrived, what happened also to me when I entered T-Rock, I felt I was ahead because I had some good calls, clearly, especially with Swamp. And you will see maybe if you watch the VOD back, but I died to Trinex somehow. And I was like, considering how Dark World was organized, was pretty linear, Dark World. And I'm like, come on, if I lose to this, despite the equipment I have, and then I have in Gans Tower, I have the BT 21st chest, and apparently you did the same, so it was not like
yeah, we both
too bad,
did the
but
same route,
I felt despite being probably ahead at T-Rock, that this could have been very costly.
Yeah, I see what you mean. You've played it well and you've routed it well, which is normally the hard part, and then silly things then can cost you the race. Yeah, that must have been a bit scary then, going up Ganon's Tower.
Oh, definitely on you're an hour and 30 something minutes in and you take a death, you feel you can avoid. It's definitely, it makes your heart pump there trying to get to the finish for sure. And you guys played a great game. Anytime your opponent finishes while you're in Ganon's Tower, that's a close match.
Yeah, no, I mean, that used to be I suppose it still is my goal, really, to at least be in the tower. At least be in the tower when I see the dot done. Then I know I've made a match of it. It was one of those seeds where when I had to go back to Swamp, I didn't really want to find it in Swamp Palace. I wanted to find it on the pedestal,
I thought about that pedestal move at some point, especially since there was no book. I felt, are we going to need to make that blind pool? I already made a blind pool in the tournament, so I was hoping not anymore.
Yeah,
especially with two very trolly items in the two medallions you were missing for a long time, both very realistic pedestal options.
Yeah, well, I was running out of places. If it wasn't in the back of Swamp, I think it was just the green pendant and the pedestal. I think they were all that was left, unless I've missed one or two little overworld spots.
Yeah, not only that, I had a lot of places to check yet. As I said, I had Catfish, I had a couple things three things in Kakariko Village in Dark World. I had already checked the Bat Cave, since I did that before the Aganim, since it was an option.
Yeah, we got to do that immediately in Kakariko Village, didn't we? That's a first for me. I've never had that chance before.
I forgot. I was so confused. I didn't do it right away. I went back in Kakariko Village later. Yeah, that was a bad time lot then, I guess.
Yeah, when I did it right away, I was hoping it would be progression, and maybe you wouldn't think to do it. I was kind of hoping for little things like that, but oh well.
Yeah, also, I don't know if it made sense what I did. At some point when I farmed all the Death Mountain, I made a quick check in Hera. I checked the 2 first locations.
Yeah, interesting, because I went up to Spectacle Rock and then I went into Hera before I checked East Dead Mountain as well. And I think I don't think I like my decision. I think I should have skipped Hera completely and done the rest of Dead Mountain, and then maybe come back to Hera if I was still missing progression. So I
You
wasn't
did it
really
this
happy
way.
with my choice.
And I went a bit at the stairs, then I jumped down, and I went the right side. Then I finished my route with Hera. I went up. I found the myths. Went in Dark World. So yeah, grabbed my Ocarina. Then did the 2 first items in Hera, and then did the spike cave. The spike cave.
Yeah, I skipped the tile room in Hera. I cleared everything else, and then later on I
Yeah.
came back and I went to the tile room and Spike Cave. So that was a bit of a waste of time as well.
I highly recommend going back watching this VOD. It was a lot of fun, great race. There were a lot of this seed where you guys followed the same path, and then some very interestingly timed, just relatively divergences that made the entire difference, because your execution was very even for both of you the same way. You were so well equipped for most of the seed that execution was not a problem. You both were executing fine. You're both very good at this game. It was just
I'm not happy when I found.
just those random
Sorry,
decisions. That's all. That's all it came
I wasn't
down
happy to find. I wasn't happy to find all those swords, because I feel if I want to get some advantage from my gameplay, I have to that we have the lowest equipment possible. So I was happy to find a sword because it's convenient. But yeah, I found the third sword, two swords next to each other. Then third sword in Eastern, and then when I was still looking for a progression item to not go to Aghanim, and then I went to Dora, and then I saw the fourth sword. I was like, come on.
Yeah, the last place you had to check before you went to do Aga was your butter sword.
Yeah, there was too many swords. We only need a tempered. I've been practicing a lot of Master Sword lately because it seems to come up a lot. It has come up in the tournament a lot. So I have to be prepared to do Master Sword everything. But obviously it's not the same against Parisian, but against other players, I kind of hope I don't find the silver arrows. I'd rather not find them. I'd rather have to do
They were
silverless.
very early silver arrows.
Yeah, I was.
And also,
Well, I'm
kind of early lamp. I'm still hoping sometimes that we don't find the lamp.
Yeah, my last race I didn't have the lamp at all, and that gave me a big advantage because my opponent didn't really want to do dark rooms. So, and I just did all the dark rooms, and that was pretty good. So I hope for more lampless seeds myself.
Anyway, GG again. Both you guys really put on a great race. It was very entertaining. We had a lot of fun casting it. A lot of fun. Chat had a lot of fun watching it. Wholly recommend you guys go back, take a look, because it really just came down to just a couple decisions, and that's what Rando is really. So
Yes,
Thank you. Thank you for commentating, and thank you for the guy who tracked.
yeah, absolutely. Let's thank our great tracker, GFE 12. Fantastic job. Stay on top of everything today. Thank you to our restreamer, Hanson. Excellent job with that. My co-commentator, Liam Atlas. Wonderful working with you, man. Thanks for filling in here at the last minute.
No problem. It was fun working with you, Blaine. And make sure you guys follow the Speed Gaming 1 through 6 channels and the ALTTPR Randomizer channels 1 through 4 if you want to watch as many of these races as possible. We've seen a lot of great matches so far, and we're only on round 3.
Yeah, if you're looking for more rando action, there is a match that's about 20 minutes in over on Speed Gaming 2, Ridley Dragon and Someone 325. And coming up in about 40 minutes on Speed Gaming 5, we've got Yoinker's Wife and Seabass 601. There's even a couple races that get going about 2 hours from now if you've got more hours left in your night on Speed Gaming and Speed Gaming 3. We go around the clock here with Link to the Past Randomizer. Anytime you're in the mood, there's a good chance something's going to be on. So keep it tuned to those 6 Speed Gaming channels, these 4 Link to the Past Randomizer channels. Give them all a follow. You'll see whenever anybody's playing this tournament, future tournaments, or other events that are going on. So again, GG's to our runners. Thanks to everybody who watched and made it happen behind the scenes. Liam, I'll turn it over to you for any last words.
I don't have anything else. Thank you again to our runners. Great job, and we'll see you guys on the next one.
Bye bye.